Hello everyone and welcome to Viz Tuesday tutorials. My name is Richard Evans. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now I hope you can hear me over the volume of my shirt, and also as you can see I am now set up in the new Viz office here in San Antonio, Texas, and ready to rock with a new batch of tutorial videos starting with how to configure global macro variables in TriCaster. Macros are a way for you to record actions on the TriCaster and then play those actions back for reliable, repeatable automation, and global variables allow you to quickly and dynamically change the way that macros function to give you greater control over your production. So, let me show you how it's done, son. All right. So I am on my TriCaster 2 Elite, and let me give you a quick layout of the land of how I have my TriCaster set up. So I currently have 3 inputs coming in, inputs 1, 2, 3, and then I have my Mix Effect 3, which is just my host on his virtual set, and we're going to leave that on my program row because I'm going to try to keep this very simple for today. All right. So as far as how to configure global macros, let me go ahead and show you where you would do that first. There's a few different ways you can do it, but let me show you the basic one. So you'd go up to the macros side of your screen, click on this drop down, and click Configure Global Variables. Boom. Okay, so I have this menu open right now, and just to give you a lay of the land, basically whatever's on the left, that is going to be the name, which will then point to the value that we have over here on input. So I currently have as input 2 and downstream keyer number 3. Let me go ahead and cover up my preview window so that we can see that and just leave it up. Okay. So now if I wanted to have a macro here, let's say configure macros, and I'll go to this one, this primary macro. All right. And I know there's a lot of stuff on screen right now, but I'm trying to make this easy for you. So direct your attention down here to downstream keyer number 1. Currently, it's set to input number 2. All right. Now, back over here on the macro that I've created, I have just 3 simple instructions, and we're just going to copy paste as we do this. So you'll see my macro here says take my downstream keyer number 1 and make that input number 1. All right. And then 1 frame later, go ahead and do an auto transition of my downstream keyer number 1, and then a few frames after that, do downstream keyer number 1 auto off. All right, so let's go ahead and play that real quick. So as soon as I hit play, it's going to change that input to input number 1, like so, and then brings it on screen, and then transitions off. Okay. Cool. Now let's say that I want to build a whole bunch of different macros that do something similar to this. All right. So if I wanted to have downstream keyer number 1 change to input 2 or input 3, or if I wanted to have downstream keyer number 2 go to inputs 1, 2, and 3, or downstream keyer 3 do inputs 1, 2, and 3. Now what I could do is I could clone this and have 9 different macros and just simply go in here and select input 1 and retype that and put that input 2, and then change downstream keyer number 1 to downstream keyer number 2 or 3, etc. Or I can just make this really simple and use global macros. Okay, so let's check this out. So I'm going to abandon this particular macro and open up my new one that says dynamic. All right, and here's where we're going to pay attention. All right, so now you'll see within the same macro, I have replaced downstream keyer 1 and the input with something different. So you'll see that I have main underscore and then downstream keyer in these curly brackets. So I have DSK, and then over on my value, I have source. So what that's doing is it's pointing to a different name here. So when you have those curly brackets, that means that you are now looking at your global variables. Okay, so now what stands for DSK here over in global variables stands for DSK3. And source in curly brackets points to source over here, which is input 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring that on screen. So what's going to happen again is it will change downstream keyer. Actually, let me change downstream keyer number 1. Number 3 to that. So what it'll do now is it will get downstream keyer number 3 because it's pointing over here to that, and then change its value source to input number 2. All right, so keep your eye over here on DSK3. And I'll hit play here and check it out. Boom. See that? Change it to 2, and then it goes away. Okay, cool. Right on. So now here's where we can do stuff interesting. I just have this one macro here, and it's doing all of the heavy lifting. All right, so now I need to have other macros that will then change what these sources are, which I have done. So for example, I have my DSK1 macro here, and if I open up the settings, you'll see that it says set underscore global underscore VAR as in variable. And then next to that, I have the name of the variable that I want to change, DSK, which is over here, and equals DSK1. All right. So for example, I'm going to hit play here to execute this macro and then watch what happens to my variables. So I hit play like this. Boom. Now it changed downstream keyer to downstream keyer number 1. Okay. Now let's do the same thing, but for the source. So I have input. Let's go ahead and open that up. And you see again, set underscore global underscore variable or VAR. And then source now equals input number 1. Excellent. So let's go ahead and play that. And now keep your eye on the input number, on next to source. So if I click play on that, it changes that to input 1. Okay, cool. So we're making a little web here of awesomeness. So now what I can do is I can have these particular macros trigger what I want those scenes to be. So I want to change my downstream keyer, or I want to change the source on that keyer, and now we can go off and running. Okay, so for that, check this out. I have made a live panel under preset number 1 to do exactly this. So those macros I just showed you, I basically just assigned those to different buttons. So for example, now when I press input number 2 here next to source, you'll see that changes it to input 2. And input 3, input 3. Downstream keyer number 1, all right, downstream keyer 2, 3, back and forth, okay? And now I just have that one macro that does everything. So for example, right now, if I click this activate button, what that's going to do is it's going to bring on my downstream keyer number 1 using input number 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Check it out. There we go. That looks about right. A few seconds later, that'll go away. Cool. Now let's change that. I want to have downstream keyer number 1 be input 3. Cool. I'll hit input 3 here. That does that. And I'm going to use that same macro. Check it out. Hit that button. Boom. That source is now input 3. And then that goes away. All right, cool. Let's go over to downstream keyer number 3 and change that to input number 1. All right, activate that. Whoop, there it goes. You can see it's doing that on the bottom here as well. Cool. And then we'll go to downstream keyer number 2, like so. Boom. Oop, helps hit the right button. All right. And then we'll have downstream keyer number 2 be input number 3. All right. Now let's go ahead and activate that. And boom, changes it. Like that. Cool. So basically what it does is these commands will hit the global variables first, and then we'll activate the macros depending on where you have it set up within the macro. So there's a ton of different things you can do with this. It really does make life in production land a whole lot easier to be able to change things universally without having to go through and just basically clone an entire macro and then change one part over and over and over again. You can just say, all right, I'm just going to have it dynamically look at these variables and then simply select these and off and running. Yeah. So some very cool stuff you can do with this. I'm doing a very light tutorial on this because there's a lot of heavy things that you can do with it, but it's really up to you, and I highly recommend playing around with this and, of course, have some fun. There you have it, global variables for macros to help make your life in video production automation land much, much easier. Now, for more tutorial videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to the VizRT YouTube channel at youtube.com/VizRTofficial. And for formalized VizRT product training, sign up for Viz University, available at VizRT.com/community/Viz-University. And you can find more information about VizRT products and services by contacting your local VizRT partner or check out our website, vizrt.com. Excited to be back in studio and look forward to seeing you again for another episode of VizRT Tuesday Tutorials.